Okay. Hi, everyone. One thing that we keep saying is, please keep watching all the videos that we did earlier, because the topics that we cover today is a continuation of the things that we did earlier. So there will be a lot of connects. That is how we want to make the learning faster. So we will build from there. Last week, what we did see is what is Spring Boot, because we specifically made the title because we didn't want to make it as a Spring Boot introduction as such, because introduction is a little higher topic. We hope everybody understood what is Spring Boot. Now today's session, we will see what is, the basically kind of introduction of Spring Boot. Let me know who all are using Spring Boot in their project. Just put it in the chat. I can see the chat messages, and then we can take it reactively also. That's the idea. Also, before we start the session, please let me know if any of you are in the process of migrating from a legacy code to Spring Boot. Starting with Spring Boot is different, but coming from a legacy code to Spring Boot is different. So in case if there is any audience specific to that area, probably I can adjust my content according to that. Please do let me know if anyone are in the process of migrating from legacy code from WebLogic, JBoss, or Tomcat to Spring Boot. Please do let me know. I'll keep checking the chat messages also. Also, in between the sessions, that if you want to ask any questions, please don't hesitate. Stop and ask questions, because by asking questions, you are not just helping your idea, you are helping the audience also, because they understand the questions that you are asking. That is the thing. Okay, very good. We have Venkatesh, who is migrating from JBoss to Spring Boot. So Venkatesh, I just want to ask you one question. What is your migration strategy? Are you migrating from JBoss to Spring Boot directly, or from JBoss you are actually making a war deployment to Tomcat, and then you are planning to migrate to jar deployment later?
Yeah, so that strategy is not yet decided. So currently, what they said is, yeah, it will be a war at the end. But now they are telling whatever the annotations and all those things, JBoss things, which they are going to make it outdated. We have to come up with some Spring Boot annotations and technologies, and that we have to use in there,
Very
injected.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. In fact, many companies are in the process of doing this. In fact, the problem starts from this place only. Many companies make a wrong strategy of coming into Spring Boot from particularly like very legacy systems like EAR deployment. We will cover that in detail in the upcoming sessions, but you can get the glimpse of what is the mistake that we usually do at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the idea. Um, yeah, thanks, Venkatesh. Thanks a lot, Venkatesh. Deepan, I know the very basics of Spring Boot as it's being used in my current project. I'm new to backend and full-time front-end developer. No problem, no problem, Deepan. It will be much easier now. Okay, let us get started with today's session. Okay, anything that you want to learn, try to learn it with as minimum code as possible. That is what I will always suggest. So in this case, all that I did is all that we are going to do with is mostly with 3 or 4 files that we have. I intentionally made it in such a way that there are no test cases, nothing. It's just a simple dummy project. We will learn whatever we can learn from here. These are the total number of files that you see, including Tomcat XML. Okay, let us see what is this application is doing. I'll just give an intro of the application. So this is a very simple application where all that I have is a product service, and the product service is actually giving me 2 methods: get product and get product name. That's the method that it gives. Let us run the application now. Okay, we start from here. Many people confuse that Spring Boot is for developing REST application and all those stuff. So let us first break that idea. It's not for developing REST application alone. It's for any application that you want to let it be a command line application also. You can do it. Spring Boot is just a programmatic structure. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with the most fundamental starter of Spring Boot. I'm starting with Spring Boot starter. There is nothing fancy about it. All that it has is just a context and all those stuff. So let us see, when you include the Spring Boot starter, the dependencies that you see here, always watch out for this area. If you're using IDE, if you're using Eclipse also, you will have some separate thing to look at the external libraries. JDK11, that's okay, it doesn't matter. So these Maven dependencies. So these are all the dependencies that this Spring Boot starter brings in for you. If you look at it, it is nothing but just a Spring Boot. These are all Spring Boot, but the core is, these are all the 5 classes that we bring in. We see them in detail in later sessions. Now, once that is there, I have a product service. So I annotated with @service, which means it should be considered as a bean. Let us see what Spring Boot is doing for us. Let us run this application. for our learning purpose, I am just printing the beans that Spring Boot has created for you. So let us see what are the things that is done behind the screen for you when you use just a product service that get named. Okay, so this is what it is doing for you. So now if you look at it, you don't even know what is this, but Spring Boot is building a lot of things that is for you. So behind the screen, these are all the aspects that you need to consider. Okay. Now let us look at the first aspect. That is, we say Spring Boot is a self-contained application. It is going to be a jar deployment. So when we say a jar deployment, let us see what is it creating. I'm just going to say, I think I can't show my command line because I shared only this one. Okay, fine. Let me show you from here. So if you look at this target folder, you have this jar file created. Okay, this jar is somewhat different from the normal jars that you create. For example, in case if it is just 3 files that you have put, your expectation is this jar file size should be. So let us look at this first aspect. Okay, so these are all the aspects that we are going to see. One, ultimately your application size matters in cloud, because that is what you are going to do for your automatic deployment and all those stuff. There are going to be a lot of uploads, downloads, and all those stuff. So now let us watch out for that aspect. Then the loading time, how much time it takes to load your application. Okay. Then the third one is performance. Once the application is loaded, how your application is going to perform. These are the aspects that you need to consider for any framework, any application that you do. But let us look at Spring Boot from these 3 sides. Okay, these 3 aspects. Number one, it is the size. Okay. Now, if you look at it, this is a very basic application. So the measurement that you see, we have a large application. I have only simple dependency. Now let us look at what is the size that this guy has created for me. I'm just packaging my application, and then I'm seeing the final size of the jar that I create, contained applications creates. It's called fat jars. This fat jars are if you look at B or something like that. Okay, so where is this 8 MBs coming from? All that I did is just 4 classes. I have only 4 classes. So the maximum that I can have is if you look at it, the size of my file is going to be usually in the jar. This is going to be only these items. So 2 Java classes, 1 YML, that's all that I'm going to have, but still it shows 8 MB. The reason being, the fat jars are nothing, but if you expand the fat jar, make it as a zip and then expand it, you will see your dependencies also will be there. In fact, technically it is more like a var. Var consists of other jars and then some startup scripts, right? That is how this fat jar is created. So one thing that you will always face problem is, let us look at the size of the application. In case if you can optimize something, you optimize it. Let me take a very simple case. I'm trying to reduce the size of this file. Consider I am using only my only log4j. It's not an actual case, but I'm trying to simulate that case. Okay. In that case, it says, okay, I don't want you to include all the other stuff that you create a Spring. I want to say, for example, now you are going to instruct Spring is bringing a lot of logback, log4j, all these things. You want to take a control of that. Okay. Now I'm going to say Spring Boot. I want the Spring Boot starter, but in the Spring Boot starter, please exclude me this logging aspect, because all that I need for logging is this log4j only. That is what you are instructing. Now, once you say that, application wise, we did not make any change. All that we did is we just excluded the jars that we don't need and included the jar that we need. It complains for the version. Now, if you make a package again, so now if you look at the size of the application, is slightly changed. But this can be handy if your application is really complex, because in my case it is simple, so the file size you see it's very less. But in your case, if you can make proper exclusion and inclusions accordingly, you can make some impact on application size. So that's one. Okay. Now let us look at the second aspect. The second aspect that we wanted to do is a loading time. Okay. Now let us look at the loading time. But before we look into the loading time, let us see what is this loading time is all about in Spring Boot. Usually people complain about Spring Boot startup time is very slow. That is not cloud ready and other stuff. But we'll see it in the okay. One, what Spring Boot is doing for you in the beginning is it will create something called application context. Before doing this, it will do some validations. The validations are like whether you have configured all the beans, structure is correct and all those stuff. That's relatively small, so that I'm not considering that. But the second thing is if you create the application context. If you dig deep into that, even this application context, what happens is it creates objects. That is the costly activity. Now in a complex application, let us make this application slightly complex now, okay? Now I'm going to start the, so the way that we have written the code is at the end of the application, Spring Boot will tell you what are all the things that it has created for you also. Now let us look at the steps, what Spring Boot did for us. Okay, now if you look at it, if you look at before it starts the application, see this is the place where it actually started the application. But before it started the application, it was creating your beans for you. For example, in your case, it's a product service bean. So it was creating this bean for you. Okay. In case if it is going to be a complex activity, you have a lot of objects, then probably this is going to take some time for you. Now, what you can customize from Spring Boot 2 is that let us make a small change to your application properties, where you can say Spring Boot, please don't instantiate the beans during the startup time. Please do lazy, be lazy with this. So if you ask Spring Boot to be lazy, let us see what is the magic that Spring Boot is doing for you. And these are all difficult things to demo it because this numbers may not show it actually with some dummy small application. In your real application, this will show pretty good results actually. Okay, now I'm not going to go with the time, but then I'm just going to show you one different aspect. Do you see a difference now? Spring Boot relatively started very quickly, and then where is this? This guy is loading the thing. Okay.
Satish, I have a question here.
Yes, please go ahead.
Why do we have two configuration files? One is POM and one is application YML.
Okay. POM is your Maven. POM is for your packaging. POM is for what are the dependencies that you need. Application.yml is for your application configurations. Oh. POM is nothing but your dependencies like package.xml, package.json in NPM. They are not. They are in fact they are not nothing to do with Spring Boot also. This is the place where you mention your dependencies.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But you configure your application here. Application.yml is for your application.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So now if you look at it, Spring Boot is kind of lazy now. It is waiting until you are accessing your product. Until you are accessing your product service. Okay. So now let us consider okay, whether it is a nice, cool feature. Please use it with caution because this can sometimes make problems to you. Concurrent issues and all those stuff can come. Use it if you really need it. These are all kind of features that is nice to have, but not good to implement it. But you can do it from Spring Boot 2.2 perspective. Okay. Now we customize the lazy loading. That's one. Second thing is, do we really need objects? You can always exclude the objects that you don't want to load, same way that you are excluding your jar files. That is also provided in Spring Boot with exclude options for your Spring Boot. For example, when you load applications, Spring Boot application, you can exclude also. If you don't want this product service, you can say, okay, I don't want this. In this way, what you are doing is, you are completely cutting it off. I don't need it, don't do it. Let us see. So what the time that you are saving now is if you think that is, okay, now you can ask the question, when I have something, why do I need to exclude it? Because in testing certain things is required, in production certain things is required. So those kind of things can be configured here, which means items that should be loaded in production, only those will be loaded. Items that should be loaded in, for example, pre-part, probably you will have more safety checks. Those beans can be excluded. That's how you can save time during your loading. That's the second thing that you can do. Basically, you are controlling what should be created, what should not be created at all for you. That's one thing. Okay. Feature flags is something like if you want to roll out a specific feature to your application. For example, you are adding an enhancement support for databases. And you don't want to give it to everybody. You want to give it to those people who are interested only. Then you can flag it saying that database support as a variable. And based on that variable, you can load that feature. basically you're loading your feature. See that in detail. This is somewhat related to your REST API versioning also, that we will see in detail in the upcoming session.
Okay.
Now, coming back to this. So now this is how we control the loading time. Okay. Let us consider another important aspect that people usually miss out. Okay. Now I'm going to say I'm going to introduce another advanced feature. Okay. That advanced feature is nothing but, consider my product is going to be taken from the database, and usually these databases operations are very, very costly. I don't want to do this database operations. I want to save time here. How do we save time? How do we offload databases? We will introduce caching. Let us go to the simple thing now.
Yeah, Satish, I just want
Again,
to say that caching.
I'm going to start an application with caching. Again, I'm going with minimal control. I'm not going to do a direct REST APIs or something like that here. Let us look at our application. So it is trying to access the product here. And then I'm going to access the same product again. My expectation is this guy should cache its result. So now I'm going to introduce caching. I will say @cacheable, and then I say please cache my results in the cache called products, and for caching to be enabled for you. So now I'm going to enable caching. Let us enable caching, and let us see what is that the guy is doing for us. Now let us look at the product. So before it gets the product, it is sleeping for so and so time. Let me debug this. Now the expectation is he will go and fetch it for the first time because there is no cache created. But second time when you ask the same product, this will take it from the cache, which means this particular line of code will not be executed, is our idea. Now it is getting the bean for you. So it is getting it from the database. Okay. You are going to ask the product for the second time, and then it never gets into this function, which means it has taken it from caching. Okay, nice, cool feature. That's very good. But where let us look at this another function. Okay, I have in some cases I don't need the entire product. I need only the product name. Let us look at this product name. I want only the product name. So in this case, I say, for example, string product name equal to, again I go to the product service, get that, and get name. So my product name is going to be product name. So how many number of database calls that we should make? Only one, because next time that you go, you actually cache your results. So you expect that again, this will go to the database for getting the product for the first time. But second time, you just need a product name. It will get the product from the cache and then it will return it. That's the idea. Okay. So now if you look at this, this is going to the database first time. It's okay, but second time it did not go. So it just said that the product name, it directly go to the product name and then it just printed. No, product name, it just printed. Okay. Cool. Okay. But let us look at from the clean code perspective. Clean code perspective, this is actually a problem. The problem is the getting a name is something like a housekeeping method. Why should I expose this to outside world? I am introducing another method here. So get product name, it is getting from the product and then it returns me the name. Nice, cool optimization. So instead of going to the product service, get product and all those stuff, I directly say get product name for my ID only. Okay. So everything should be nice now. It should make one call only to the database. It should not make multiple calls because it should cache. Any difference of opinions here? Will there be any problems here? My expectation is it should hit the database only once, because that's how I written the program. So the way that I have written the program is, if you are calling get product, please cache the data. So next time if I'm calling this get product again from here, it will take it from the cache. That's the expectation. So now look at it carefully. Now it is going here because you are accessing what? Get product, the first line. So it is going there. That's nice. But the second line, now you are going to get product name. This time you expect that it don't get into this line of code. But it is actually getting into this, which means it's hitting the database again. What went wrong? What is wrong with my code? It is not supposed to go, right? It should cache. Anybody face this problem? Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead with this. I will see that later also, but this is a very important aspect. Now, what is happening is this is a place where many people will take a mistake because code looks perfectly fine. And these kind of things, you can't even see that this is a problem because anyway, you get the value. We'll be considering that our application is nice. We are using caching quite effectively, but under the hood, you are not using your caching at all. But what is happening here? You can go to Stack Overflow and see the answers. But the thing is, fundamental principle we need to understand. What is happening with Spring Boot inversion of controllers? What is this application context is doing it for you? Are they just instantiating your class and then loading it to your context? No. What happens is they do something called proxies. What are these proxies? You can learn about the proxies and reflection in a separate topic that is usually considered as advanced Java, where it's quite a bit used only by framework developer, but actually it is for guys like us, also application developer also. We will see that in detail later. But as a concept level, what you understand is what magic that Spring Boot is doing for you is when it loads this application context for you, it will not load your object directly. Basically, if you annotate it as an @ service, it will take this class, create a proxy. It's called aspect-oriented programming, and they put before and after a method implementation, so they don't call your function directly. In fact, you will have a separate function where you can put before and after. That is the place where your security, caching, all these features will be implemented, which means it is not this class that gets executed, it is something else that is created by Spring. So what is the problem here is when you call a cacheable method inside your class itself, you are bypassing that check. Spring has no control of understanding that there should be caching in this line. That is why Spring makes that mistake. It's not a mistake. That is how Spring is supposed to work. So you need to be careful when you design your application. Understand the aspect that when you ask a product service, it does not necessarily be the same product service that you are creating here. It's basically a proxy build. That is one aspect that usually people make a mistake. Hope this is clear. If there is any doubt, please let me know. In case if you feel any weird behavior with security, caching, you can always doubt this area. That's one aspect. Now let us get into the other aspect. This is a very popular miss. Okay. Now the other aspect where I'm going to get into the REST world now. I'm going to make a REST controller. To that, I included web as my starting point. Let us see what is the REST endpoint that I want to add. I will say REST controller. I'm not introducing another class for this, just for simplicity's sake. REST controller. Then you want to write a REST. What is it? You are giving an ID, and then you need this product service auto edit, and you are simply returning product service dot get product of ID. Get mapping, and then you can say in the get mapping slash products ID. So this is I hope everybody knows this. So nothing different here. Keep watching this external libraries always. So now when you included, you see this Jackson came, you never mentioned Jackson, and then Tomcat came. There are a lot of things that Spring is providing, but keep an eye on it. If you think something is not related to you, please go ahead and then remove it. This goes to the same question that somebody asked in the last session. Spring Boot is like introducing a lot of things where it gives opinionated complete package. It is still customizable by the way, so you can customize it. Now it started, it did not stop the process because it's a REST API. Let us look at the REST API that we just created. Localhost 8080/products/1. Your REST API is running. No, but that is not our goal. Let us look at how much time that Spring is taken to start this. It started the application in 10 seconds. 10 seconds is usually a long time. If you compare our earlier application, when you introduced only Spring Boot cache, it was much faster. Can anybody guess why is this taking extra time here? What is that extra time that once I added web, it is taking extra time?
Is it due to Tomcat?
Yeah, because it's Tomcat for you. Spring has no control how much time the Tomcat will take to load itself, right? So now let us look at this aspect from the command line. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do a Maven clean package, not Maven clean package alone, because this is not important to us. I'm just going to say Spring Boot : run. So let us, we are interested only in the starting time. I don't want to build this application anymore. So let me run this application and see the startup time. What went wrong just now? Spring Boot. Okay, sorry. Spring -boot. Let me make this mistake up. So if anybody not familiar with this is a way of running your application without making a jar. This is very handy if you are using it at the staging environment. For CI/CD, this is a very important aspect that we will cover later. Without making a jar, build failure. Port 80 is already in use because I started the application here. I did not stop the application. Okay. So now if you look at the log, it says starting a service Tomcat and all those stuff. Then it says, okay, I have taken say 8 seconds or something like that. Okay. Now here is the place where people will say we are going to make our application really faster. We don't want the startup time, and they have a very simple magical line where I just go and then say Spring Web. Instead, I'm going to say Web Flex. Do we need to change any code? No. Spring abstracted all the behavior. Your controller remains same. Everything remains same. You don't need to make any change. Now Spring will do that magic that application will become very fast now. And again, these numbers will really vary in the complex application. As this is a demo application, you see that application started relatively faster now. See, it was starting with something like again, I told you there are some variety of reasons, but basically you see number of logs is very less, but application usually start very fast. Can anybody guess why it started very fast now? What is the difference that you see compared to previous one? Exactly. So this net is a non-blocking server. Okay. Basically, difference between web and WebFlex is a non-blocking way of developing applications. Non-blocking means it will not block your calls until it serves your request. They will keep allowing other people, and then kind of in an asynchronous way, they will fetch and then give it to you. And usually people make a mistake considering that, see, my application is starting fast. So this is a very high performing application. But actually your application it is not making your application faster. If not, it is going to make your application slower. Can anybody tell me if I'm wrong? So basically my claim is, by going here, you're not making your application faster. You're going to make it slower. Is my statement valid? That's what Spring Boot's official documentation says. Because if you consider this non-blocking and blocking way, what is a blocking way? Where you will wait until you serve your request. But in a non-blocking way, you put an additional resources where they will keep waiting for throwing a message, watching for the message. So that is quite a costly activity. You are doing something extra to make it non-blocking. It is not something that you are reducing. So which means sometimes it might make it slower. But what is the real gain? You are not making it blocker, which means you can support more load. So the way that you are going to react to all the benefit that you have is not making it faster, but basically, if you look at this specific line, I will mention this in the group also. Please go and see, because many people make a mistake here. They have clearly mentioned this. Performance has many characteristics, but reactive non-blocking generally do not make applications run faster. On the whole, they will take some extra processing time. But the startup time is different from the performance. Startup time is faster, not because it is faster. It is because Netty starts faster. That is why it is faster. But in your runtime performance, it will be relatively slower. But then you can load more items. This is a place where I even discussed with some of the teammates. They were in an impact that this application is going to be very faster. But this aspect, please watch out for this. This is one of the very popular interview questions, where some people, they claim that we'll ask, how do you make Spring application faster? Immediately they will say, we'll use WebFlex, that will make it faster. But it's a wrong answer. So these are all the things that usually we make mistake considering to Spring Boot. This is about Spring Boot introduction. We will get into some real applications in the upcoming sessions. But so far, any doubts, please do. Any doubts? Okay, I'm looking at the chat thing. Please, you can unmute yourself and then ask the doubts directly also if I'm missing some doubts.
Sorry, Satish. Yeah, I was on mute. Okay. Okay. If I look at the questions, one was that okay, Anup mentioned that you can use FF4J libraries for using feature flags. Anup, I'm not aware of it, so probably the audience can explore it a bit better. Okay. There was a question from, I believe, I'm not sure if the name is right, Balachandar or Balan. Is caching per session level or application level? Well, that depends on how your caching key is set up. So it depends on that. There was a question from Venkatesh on what is the difference between cache and EH cache and when to use which one. Sanjay had said that, okay, I just want to explain one simple thing to the audience here. When you're talking about cache, caching can mean an in-memory cache or an external cache. So it depends on how you are, where you're caching it. If you're using in-memory cache, where something as simple as a hash map or a set can also be a cache, then obviously you will lose it when your Java process exits or it is abruptly killed. So in this case, when you're talking about caching, we're talking about not exactly in-memory cache within the application, but some kind of an external cache. And to answer, I think I don't believe it was Narayan's question that, can we store anything in cache? So just for an example, everything which you see on Netflix, right from the catalog to the video, everything is cached. So for Netflix, if there's a cache miss, then you're not retrieving anything from the cache, but you're actually going and querying the actual source, that is considered to be a performance degradation. So it depends on how you have architected your application as to what level you're using caching and how you're using it.
Okay. So to add to that, actually, in fact, we will cover the caching is a separate topic. Actually, we can cover that.
Yes, absolutely.
There are good practices, bad practices. Sometimes caching can slow your applications. Sometimes caching can corrupt your functional. It can introduce bugs also. Quite a bit of a bug that you cannot trace it that easily. Also debug that easily also. But in general, the thing is, do not get into caching immediately when you start the application. Let the application run for some time in production, and slowly observe the behavior and introduce caching one by one. If you introduce caching upfront, probably you might make some mistakes. You can corrupt your caching. That's one thing. Now, if I'm going with Sanjay's point, please consider explaining about Project Reactor. Yes, Sanjay, that's good. We are not covering Project Reactor yet. Actually, Project Reactor will be a separate session. Today, I just mentioned that this is not going to give you better performance. We will see that in detail with Project Reactor. So that's a very good point that people should see before they use Webflex or Vertex or something like that. They should know Project Reactor.